Hey everyone, today I'm joined by Jared McCluskey, the founder and creator behind The Mirror. It's a next-gen real-time game development platform built on top of the Godot engine. Hey Jared, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Great to meet you. Great to chat.
Yeah, good to meet you too. Why don't you, I gave you a bit of an introduction, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so to give you some background, I was playing a lot of video games as a kid and, of course, having fun like everyone else, and thought, well, what if we make video games instead? And that was 10 times more fun. I got started in Dark Basic to begin. Did you ever try Dark Basic, or are you familiar with it?
I did. It's funny. I dabbled with it during school. I actually got a grant to I can't remember
Great.
what it was now. I applied for some grant during high school, and they gave us all of this money. It was about 300 quid at the time, which felt like a huge amount of money. And I
Oh,
think
it's great.
it
Yeah.
was me and my friend, and we blew the whole thing on a Dot Basic Pro license, so I'm very familiar with it. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Great to hear. Yeah, I started with like the Dark Basic original, found Dark Basic Pro, and I was like, oh, this
Yeah,
is awesome. I felt like a professional, hence the name.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so love that. But as you've definitely seen with game development, and love your videos, by the way,
Thank you.
because it's so complex. Going beyond a web app where it's like you have two dimensions. When you go to
Yeah.
the third dimension, it's exponentially more complex. So I stumbled into Second Life just as a player, as a kid, like the
Hmm.
OG metaverse of 20 years ago,
Yeah, yeah.
and quickly realized that it was very much a game development platform ahead of its time. And so I started
I
making
agree.
games in it just because it was so easy to do so. And that turned into a bit of an online business as a kid. And so I love that you got a grant, because I was making some money off of the just like essentially selling skins, of selling armor and weapons and that kind of stuff, kind of a
Yep,
Second Life
yep.
arms dealer. And then like even the smallest amount of money, you're just like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. So
Absolutely. Yep.
loved it, and I've really been dreaming about building a platform like that ever since. But again, I love the educational side that you do, because I don't have a computer science degree, but from learning how to
Yeah.
code in Second Life all the way back then, I have since written code for SpaceX. I've taught code at a university, like all this crazy stuff just from
Yeah, yeah.
making video games as a kid. So I hope what we're doing with the mirror can have a similar effect on many people.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's really good to hear. It's funny that you mentioned Second Life because I was a massive fan of Second Life. I probably spent far too much time on that game, and I was similar to yourself. I got involved in the whole scripting side of things. I built a business, but it was probably nothing like the scale that you managed to achieve. But I also had like it was a jewelry shop of all things, right? I don't know why
A
I picked
jewelry
a jewelry
shop.
shop, but I created we were selling like diamond necklaces, right? With this shop was called Diamond Bling, and I don't even remember
Yeah,
why we
yeah.
did this, but we were selling jewelry and guns. That was the two things we had, and I remember
That's
having
amazing.
this plot of land, and it was just great, right? It was such a bizarre experience because there was never like before this, there was never anything like that where you would join this online space, you would be walking around and you'd bump into other people that had like plots of
Oh yeah.
land and shops and businesses. And I mean, there was some weird stuff in Second Life, right? But yeah,
I
it's,
tried to tell my friends about it, yeah, and get them in, and they're like, "Weird."
yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
good.
yeah. Well, I remember spending a lot of time in, there was like casinos and nightclubs and all sorts of crazy stuff that you could do in there, and you're right, it was ahead of its time. And to be honest, I don't even know what happened to it. What do we know what happened? Did it just disappear or?
I could pull up my profile, but the thing is, it looks very much the same.
I see,
And
I
I
see.
was always hoping they'd make changes to it, but like even the sound effects, like what you hear when you bump into an object, is still the same thing from
Still the
20
same.
years ago. Yeah, well, 15 to be fair. But yeah, so I think part of that was just it hasn't evolved. But some of my favorite
Gotcha.
things from it, one is the interoperability that she mentioned, where you wear your
Yep.
diamond bling, and then you can go
Yep.
everywhere from a medieval world to a nightclub to whatever. It was true interoperability, because you design something and then take it wherever you want with you, which I thought was really cool. And what happened with your store?
Yeah, no. So with the store, we didn't take it any further. It was two of us. I can't even remember how I met this guy in Second Life, I believe, and we sold a few things. It was quite cool seeing other people walking around with like the guns that we've made, the jewelry that we've made. But what I was gonna ask you was you mentioned in one of your videos, I think it was, where you had built this armor set, right? And then you saw somebody else with the same piece that was created by them apparently. Now, I kind of experienced the same thing when I was doing the jewelry thing, right? It had like my name on it, whatever my character's tag was, and then you kind of you end up looking at someone else and going, oh, well, hold on a minute, that's not created by you, that was created by me. Like, what's going on here? So, can you tell me a bit more about like how that whole thing transpired?
Yeah, absolutely. So very much what you described. I was building an army kind of. 'Cause it's truly gamified in the sense that like you create well just items, whatever that is. And so in this case, it was weapons and mechs and armor, you name it, and then sell that. And that is like your identity in this Second Life world. And it was also role playing too, because people would get so into it, myself included, where you have these militaries of 200 to 300 plus people, and you are just duking it out. Like it is savage. They're like gloves are off type of thing, and the identity of the militaries is very interesting because you could create a group in Second Life, charge for admission, and then only like essentially have a store that anyone could see, but they could only buy an item if they were part of that group. And you probably saw that with some of your Second Life sales as well.
Yeah.
And so that's how we ran the militaries was you had to join the military, and then that was in order to buy the equipment. So some of the best stuff you could get on the entire Second Life grid. Not just mine, like they're like 3 or 4 major militaries, and they just have the coolest stuff.
Yeah.
And so you join the army. You can only join one, otherwise, because they're just clashing constantly, and then start selling it that way. And so because that was such a key part of the identity for anyone in the military, it was a high value item. And then I was, so Second Life sandbox regions, just these blank plots that clear every 12 or 24 hours that you can build whatever you want on. Good interoperability with just anything's in there by definition, and then good way to meet people too. So you just see like kind of Second Life residents running around, and I noticed this guy running around with my armor, and I was like, I know everyone in my group, like he's not part of that. And I inspected it, and like when you're designing something in Blender or any other 3D modeling software, like every single piece, especially the flaws too. And so I really zoomed in on it, and I was like, I did that. Wait a second, that's not just like a nice copy. That is literally a copy.
The same thing,
I had a different creator listed with it too. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Never thought this would happen.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So yeah, I mean, we'll dive into some of this when we start talking about the mirror shortly. But yeah, it's a strange thing. It's funny because I mean, I played Second Life for a long time, but I didn't know any of that military side of things existed. I must have just been in my own little world. We had the gun stop, but like I don't even know where we were using those guns. It was definitely not in a 300-man military skirmish anywhere in Second Life.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. The Second Life grid couldn't handle it, of course. The skirmishes would get crazy, and then the grid crashes. Then everyone shouts at each other for who crashed the grid, and then everyone's filing reports after that. It just clubs off, but a lot of fun.
Amazing. Cool. Well, I guess that kind of brings us on to the mirror then. I guess first and foremost, for people that don't know anything about the mirror, may have not heard of it, I only found out about it like a week ago, I believe. I think it was on Twitter. Someone had shared something on Twitter. I jumped on, had a look, and found it really interesting. So could you give us like the elevator pitch for what the mirror is for people that don't know?
Yeah, absolutely. So the quick version is, if you know of Roblox, of course, we think of ourselves as a next generation Roblox, but with better graphics and deeper experiences and entirely built on open source. Right now, if you build into any other platform like Roblox example, you're always locked into that. That is where your content is. If you ever want to move out, it's very hard to do so. But we take the approach instead of, hey, own your data. And this comes back from scars as a kid when 3D models got stolen, where I'm like, man, like I had nothing to do there. And so with that, we are a full-blown vertically integrated game development platform. And a key thing that we do too is real-time development. And so because gaming is so complex, again, going from 2 dimensions to 3, exponentially more complex, such that like with Google Docs, for example, or Notion or Microsoft Word, like so much is collaborative and online in real time. And that's because web apps are simpler in complexity. But game development is still very much just like commit your code, push it up, pull the changes. And if you really want to get that experience, then you have to get everything together for a playtest, do the deployments, do the servers, like all this setup. And then I was like, wait a second. 20 years ago, Second Life had this real-time development, and that's amazing. Yeah. That was like a gold standard that I don't think anyone has done correctly just yet. And so we take that same approach. And so, in short, we are truly a real-time development platform where everything you see in the mirror is done in real time.
Fantastic. Awesome. And I guess the second question then is why Godot? Obviously, you mentioned that you love open source, you love that interoperability, being able to sort of take your experiences from one place to another. I saw that you recently did like the whole GLB importing and things like that. But why specifically did you choose Godot?
Yeah, great question. So, of course, there have been a few other open source engines, and Godot has hit breakneck adoption, and there have been a few others that have done well, but I think part of the reason that Godot has grown so well, and just playing with it a good bit myself, like it's not just an engine that's open source, it's a really good engine. And I like the analogy of Tesla conquered the market very well with electric vehicles because one reporter wrote that it wasn't simply a good electric car, but it was a good car, period. And I think Godot is in a similar vein, where it's not just a good open source engine, it's a good engine, period.
Yeah,
And
I
so
agree.
when I started to realize that, I thought, wait a second, like this is incredible. And so Ariel Manzur, one of the co-founders of Godot, is an advisor with us. And early on, he brought up the point. He was like, look, Godot is mostly at runtime. Like you could, so we were talking about ways we could collaborate or integrate real-time development. And he was like, well, the Godot editor is actually Godot application. So take those
Yes.
same approaches there. So that's been very key in how we've done it. So the short answer is that it's a great engine and then the real-time component as well.
Amazing. Yeah, it's always baffling, I think, for people when they hear that, the whole Godot editor is effectively a Godot game, right? It's built in Godot. It's yeah, a weird one, but it's impressive how it's done, and obviously it's giving you that flexibility for what you need to do. So
How come Godot for you?
good question. So for me, I predominantly was always whenever I built games in the past, I was always Unity or Unreal Engine. And to be honest, for me, I ended up having a look at Godot because I can't remember where I found out about it, to be honest, but it was during the whole COVID pandemic lockdown. Things had started kicking off, people were staying at home, and I was just, quite frankly, I was just a bit bored. And so I found this new engine, I had to play with it. And to be honest, the fact that it was an integrated experience, like you had the code editor there, you had everything else was all just built in. It was a nice like 40 meg, I believe, or 20 meg or whatever it was download. Everything was open source. You got access to see everything. It was free. Like just everything about it just felt right to me. And then when I dived in and started playing with the GD script, it just felt comfortable. And I thought that back then, I mean, we're talking a few years ago now, but obviously things have changed, but there wasn't a lot of content out there. So when I was trying to learn it, I was going to the documentation, which wasn't as good as it is today. I think, Nathan from GD Quest has done a great job redoing a lot of that documentation, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people have contributed as well. But back then it was quite sparse, and I kind of just needed something to do, to be honest. And I was like, do you know what? I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna teach it myself. And as part of that experience, I mean, I created the channel, and really the channel for me was just a way for me to teach myself the engine, right? I didn't, some of these things I was putting out, like the first person shooter, I had no idea how to build a first person shooter in Godot. Me creating the video was me teaching myself how to do it. So yeah,
Oh, that's
for me,
awesome.
it was
I love
just a
that.
bit of a something new to learn. I'm always looking for new stuff to learn. But to be honest, like with everything that's happened recently with the whole Unity revenue share stuff, and everything else that's happening with layoffs in Epic and all sorts of other things, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more people shifting. We already have seen a lot more people shifting over to Godot. So I think it's a great
Yeah,
time to
absolutely.
be part of this community. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's the reason for me.
yeah, that's awesome. Much agreed. And we have a similar philosophy as far as, yeah, so we recently announced our revenue share model, kind of a
I
creator
saw
pool
that.
bit
Yeah.
akin to Spotify, where we think Godot has done a fantastic job with creating truly a world-class but entirely free engine, which is just absolutely amazing. And especially with Unity's pricing changes, like that's a huge risk if you're subject to that. And of course, you could very well argue, well, the mirror is a platform, so how is it different in that sense? And so we view ourselves as a bit of a revolving door between Godot and the mirror, in that if you want to start in the mirror and in Godot kind of graduate to a full-blown game engine, by all means, that's great. Godot is, as Juan Liniansky has stated, it's very much intentional on being a good general purpose engine. And so
Yes.
we're more the platform component to that, where if, so vice versa, if you want to start in Godot, And then with like our GLP import video with flashlights, if you want to build stuff in Godot and import that in the mirror, then by all means, but it's still the same pricing model. We're free for creators, and then you just get paid whenever you create premium content that a paying subscriber, a paying player then plays. Then everyone's happy. Everyone gets paid in that sense.
Cool. And so I want to kind of dive into that a little bit actually. So I've seen the video, like I said mentioned before, about the whole GLB import process. So is there an export process in terms of like models, but also you mentioned like if you want to sort of move on to, you know, a full-blown game engine, a full-blown Godot experience, is there a process or is there a planned process to take whatever you create within the mirror and turn that into something that you can then expand upon outside of that?
Yeah, so great question. So as a whole, and I should caveat all this with we're in alpha, we're early on, so we're always open to feedback for the best approach here, but we just want to be transparent with how we're thinking about this.
Absolutely.
So we view it as a static export that you can take it with you out of Godot. But with us being the platform side, if you like, we're providing networking, authentication, databases, APIs, the whole slew, analytics, all these things that you'd have to do, which is very much a web development side and not as much game development. So if you just want to do game development, use the mirror because then you don't have to worry about the web development side. So the converse to that then is, in parallel with it, is that if you export static stuff out of the mirror into just Godot, you've now got to write all that yourself. Networking, authentication, databases, like the whole list yet again. So we're happy to do our best to let you take that with you, including scripts, for example. We have visual scripting to start, which I'm happy to show you, but then we're also working on writing in-world GD script. So the knowledge transfers. If you know GD script, really, if you know Python, just all right, hop in and start writing and have fun. Then you can take those scripts with you that you write. We want you to own your data there. And ultimately, though, you'd have to write that own layer yourselves, which could take a good few engineers to do that full networking stack.
Yeah, absolutely. No, 100%. I mean, I don't know if you know, but I work for Heroic Labs, so we build Narcomerce, the backend.
Oh, right, yeah.
We're platinum sponsors of Godot.
Amazing.
So yeah, I know all about the complexities of building your own backend and things like that. So I guess this leads me on to a question I had about the backend for the mirror. Is there any interesting tech that you can share there? Obviously, Godot engine itself is open source. Are you using anything else for the backend that's interesting that you could share?
That's a really good question. So one thing to note is one technical approach with doing games is kind of a coupling question of how much is very much built bespoke for that game engine. And as you'll see on our web app as well, we have a good way, we've intentionally created things in the database, how we architect it such that it could be pulled and rendered in a different medium. For example, we're using 3JS on our web app in .themirror.space. And that's not like an exact one-to-one with how we're doing it, but it's part of the difference in that the key thing is owning your data. And so with that, an implementation would be the GLTF/GLB standard, which Godot is awesome that it really focuses on that. And other game engines haven't done that as much. Very interestingly, arguably, because, okay, well, you can now take components of the 3D models with you that have real game properties, like lighting, for example, which is just awesome. And so we're embracing those standards. So to answer your question, really, it kind of comes down to ultimately, like, what's the data that you're taking with you? We want you to own it. And so that, and with that, to build trust for the long haul with how you build your games.
Cool. Awesome. So I guess we've kind of covered, a bunch of stuff about the mirror, about what it is, about your philosophy and things. It would be really cool if we could try and maybe just dive into the mirror and you can kind of give me a little walkthrough if that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
It'd be fun.
All right. Cool.
And hence the real-time development aspect. I think it's perfect for hanging out with friends, to podcast/YouTube, to even testing with your users when you're building a game. Because you want to make sure that that game loop is very good and satisfying. And what better way to do it than to be modifying it with your users in real time? Absolutely.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Okay, cool. I think I'm in.
Awesome.
Okay. So I've spawned into the FPS template world. I mean, graphically off the bat, this looks amazing for a Godot project. Obviously, we've seen the graphical fidelity of Godot 4 games is steadily improving, and there's some amazing examples. But I mean, off the bat, this looks awesome. Oh, there you are.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Hello. Yeah. So what I did there if you hit B for build mode, like right now
Okay.
we're playing, but
Yep.
if you hit B for the build UI, you can click users on the top right. And that's how I found you. So I can just click,
I
focus, and
see.
then
Yep.
hit teleport.
Got you. So I can focus on you, and then teleport is at. Oh, I see. Okay, cool, awesome. So you can jump straight in if your friends are on, a different part of the map. I don't know how big are these world spaces. Are they big enough that it might take you quite a while to find somebody, or?
Yeah, yeah. So if you hit B and then zoom all the way out, you can hold shift to move the camera more quickly. This is just kind of our V1 size of the map, but
Okay.
for one map, having one height map. But we'll be adding much more in the future because we want you to be able to create large worlds from
Yep.
RPGs, open world games, and so forth.
Amazing. Yeah, that's a big map.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. So,
Cool.
and as I mentioned, all this is in real time, everything we're doing. So as we
Yep.
build, it's like we just saw this door open here. So if we hit
Yep.
B and then click on this door, you'll see that there's a script attached to it. And so this is our visual scripting at the moment. And as I mentioned, we'll be rolling this out. Well, it is already out, but we'll be rolling this out eventually with GD script as well. So you could
Got you.
really get the full power of Godot here. And so, simple example here, we have a timer that simply tweens an object variable and then sets the rotation of the door there. And if you click variables at the top, that's also kind of our I don't want to say database, more so local variables, because we'll be rolling out a
Okay.
full-blown database in the future for
Yep.
persistent things like scoreboards. So you could have thousands of players play your game and have leaderboards for who's done the best, things like that. But these variables will be cleared after the game. However,
Okay.
these are just tracking very basic things like the state of the door, its rotation, and so forth. And did you ever write code with React by chance in
I
your
have.
adventures?
Yes. Yes. In fact,
Okay,
I'm
cool.
historically a web developer before I joined Heroic and before I started doing any of this stuff. So yeah, yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Good to hear. Yeah, that web development has been a lot of my professional focus before the mirror, actually.
Got
And
you.
so
Yeah.
I love Redux's model of, okay, you have one single store of state, which I think is really
Yes.
helpful because you always know where to go, essentially. And
Yeah.
so we're taking a similar approach there where we can find this object variable of this door and then adjust the rotation from there and just
Cool.
monitor it.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
if you mentioned it's real time, right? So if I come into this build menu here, I can see a bunch of stuff on the left hand side. If I drag that in, I guess you're going to see this giant gun appear in front of you now, right?
Yep, I see the gun.
Amazing.
And so this is actually, I believe, from Quaternius. I might need to double check that, but there's a lot of great open source contributors like Quaternius. Kenny
Yep.
is another one that we've uploaded some of these assets, and we make sure to credit them too. That you'll see whenever we do so. Looks like that's something to be added. We have the tag in the database, but we'll make sure that's displayed because we want to give credit where credit is due.
Absolutely.
For some of these, though, let me actually take you downstairs.
Yep.
We have a spot where we created some spawn points for the guns themselves. And so you can just walk into them. Here we are. All right, so if you find me again
Let's
and you
see.
teleport, that'll
Yep.
do the trick.
So 1 second. Oh, I'm trying to teleport to myself. There we go. Okay.
Awesome. So
Cool. So
over
I
here,
can.
if you now walk into a gun, that'll
Very
pick that
cool.
up. Flashlight. And feel free to shoot me.
Nice.
Damage is enabled. And the idea is like, have you played Gary's mod?
I have, but a long time ago. A long time ago.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we take a lot of inspiration from that, where you can shoot each other, and then you might be building one part of the map, and then someone comes over and shoots you. But
Yep.
that's the fun of it. Same for Minecraft. Like I was playing a Minecraft game with my brother once, and he was very into this tower that he was building, and you
Yep.
go and
Yep.
find a bow and arrow, and you're like, hmm.
Yeah,
we
I have
take the
two.
same perspective from that.
I have two kids, and constantly, whenever we are building anything in Minecraft, they don't let me have a minute's peace. So I'm totally used to that. So
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now we're in.
That's awesome.
Are we in play mode or are we in build mode, or is there a difference? Like what? How does that work?
Yeah, so we're in build mode at the moment. And let me
Okay.
teleport over back to you again real quick.
Sure.
And if you press M, that's a way you
Yep.
can select your team. And this is a feature we just released some of the basics of, so we still have some UI to add here.
Yep.
But when you join the, say, blue team, for example, that'll teleport you to that spawn point.
Got you. Yep.
And so again, we're still building right now, but if I hit B, we will ready up when I click preview. So you should be getting a ready check on your screen.
Got you.
And then
Yep.
when you go forward with that, now we are playing the game. This is what would actually happen whenever you publish and people play it, such as a full-blown deathmatch. So you'll notice that we lost our guns because now, well, you started from scratch, so no guns.
Yep.
You got to go find your guns and start playing from there.
Amazing. And these guns, these have just been placed there by you. This isn't any sort of specific, you're not penned into creating like a shooting game. This is just this one particular template that we've got here.
Correct. Yeah, a lot of our focus for features is our FPSs to start, just because they're
Yep.
a lot of fun, but they're also the hardest. We want to make sure that we can help you build the hardest games first. Then everything else after that is far easier to do.
Got you. I see. And when we say there's an FPS, there's if I press C, right, that gives me a first-person camera.
Yeah, technically first person or third person.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll keep on iterating and see where this goes from feedback.
Awesome.
So
this is really cool.
we play this game.
Yeah, go on.
Thank you. So we play this game, and then if you hit escape, you can click end preview. And when I do that, it's going to teleport us right back to where we were before we started the preview.
Yep.
And so a key part of that is, say, like, for example, I'm up here next to this turret, just modifying this part of the map. And it could be 10 of your buddies. You're modifying different parts of the map. Well, you hit build and then click preview, and then everyone previews the game with the new effects. For example, say you added a boss somewhere on the map. Now you got to go through the map and find the boss. So you play it, you test it, and then immediately once you're done with that, you hit escape, go back to end preview. And now I've spawned right back where I was modifying this turret up at the top of the hill. And so you get this seamless, very quick feedback loop of, okay, we tweak this, preview. We tweak this, preview. And ultimately that preview is what people will play when they join.
So it's no longer a case of, write some code, press compile, wait for that, 3 minutes, whatever it is, go grab a cup of coffee, come back, get back to where you were. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of thing that I kind of wish we had in... I've done a little bit of Roblox development in the past, but that whole disconnect between having, Roblox Studio as a completely separate application, you run it, you preview it, and then you've got to do the whole publish to Roblox and so on and so forth. I mean, it's not a terrible experience, but it's certainly not as fast for iteration as I can imagine this being. So I guess...
Yeah, very much so.
I guess my follow-up question to this, and I can see you guys have a devlog that's coming out. Is it weekly at this point?
Aiming for roughly weekly. Sometimes we want to make sure we get a feature over the line, and so it might be a little delayed, but yeah, aiming for weekly.
Sure. No, that makes total sense. And I guess what's your next focus then from this point? So you've done the whole GLB import. I've seen that you had there's seats in there and a bunch of different sort of sub nodes. You've got the visual scriptings in there now. What's the next big feature that you guys are looking to implement?
Yeah. So let me touch on one thing, and then I'll answer that. If you come over to where I'm at the top of the building here with this spinning pipe.
Yep. Let me see if I can teleport over to you.
I love that you mentioned the right code side, hit save, you push, upload it.
Yep.
And our thought is, well, that's quite a laborious process. So if you click on this pipe and then you can, in build mode, and then click one of the scripts, you'll actually see that as any modifications to the script are made, even just like the position of where the block is, or if I add a comment, for example, then that's all done in real time as well. So we're actually doing this together. Really cool. So there's my Hey Tom comments, and I can start this here to start to highlight that for real-time collaboration, truly.
That's really cool. Yeah, I love that even the visual scripting nodes are real time. That's really cool. So you can be pointing out to someone on the screen, hey, check out this node over here. We're changing the rotation degrees on this, yada yada yada. That's really cool. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
I love that.
I appreciate it. So with that too, for this pipe, the reason I brought this up is because obviously it's spinning. The rotation has changed. We have some tweening functionality as well, but one of the hardest things to do is networked physics. And so we love the Jolt and physics engine. And so we'll be rolling that out in the coming weeks. Actually, that's like our whole team focus right now. So that, and of course, once you have physics, you can create nearly any type of game, from like Minecraft has some basic physics to Gary's Mod, kind of a step up from there. You see entire games based around physics, like Angry Birds. I love Red Faction too, like very good for shooter plus physics with that. And so we'll be rolling that out in the coming weeks. And with that, we have local variables for storage, and then you'll be able to create full-blown games. And then shortly we'll have leaderboards too. So really, we have some very strong features coming out, but one of the most I'm excited about is the Jolt physics side coming soon.
Amazing. Yeah, that'll be fantastic. Like you say, it opens up so many doors to be able to have that network physics in there. So I guess this is all locally simulated physics right now, or?
Networked, actually. So
okay,
you just saw me die there.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic.
That was, yeah, and so that was actually a script that caused damage, but we'll have some sensible defaults too, that everything is networked and in real time, which is hard to do. We're going to have to do, again, we're trying to solve the hard problems for the developer, such as making sure that everything is synchronized, but still we do have an advanced menu if you don't want to run a script server side or don't want to process something server side as well, just for the client on that end. So a lot of tweaks and iterations are coming there, but always open to feedback for the best ways to do it.
Awesome. No, that's really cool. And I guess the one thing I mean I'd love to touch on before we sort of wrap this up is you mentioned briefly about the whole creator pool and revenue share and you know the sort of being able to sell your assets and allow other people to use that. Could you give us a little summary of how you see that working in practice for both the creator and the I guess the people making the games and the people making the assets for the games?
Yeah, great question. So let's go over back to the guns real quick.
Sure.
And let me find that. I'll teleport over to it. Here we are. Yeah, that's a really good point that we're trying to do, right? And so with that, whenever you're playing a game, or excuse me, making a game, kind of one and the same with what we're doing, but
sure,
you, of course, need the 3D assets. You need audio, you need textures, the list goes on. And so we want to simplify that, but it's really multiple people all contributing to the creation of a game. So with this gun asset, for example, our intention is, okay, well, I as a creator can, like whatever assets I have, I can throw those in there. And then, of course, if I want a premium asset, it might be from someone else. Like there's a good chance I didn't create that 3D model myself.
Yeah.
So our vision is, okay, so a 3D modeler can upload, say, this premium rifle here. And if a creator uses that in game, then they can do so for free. That is the creator.
Okay.
Whenever they publish the game and then a player's playing it, now that player has to be subscribing. So
I see. Say
this tool gun here, this blue gun is free, then I can use as much free stuff as I want. But just literally real time in game, it's going to say, got to subscribe right here, can't use this rifle. And then so it incentivizes creators to make awesome games to where players want to be paying that subscription to unlock the full premium library for everything out there. So kind of similar to Spotify in the sense where they give you a lot for free. I don't know if we want to do ads. Maybe in the future, we're open to ideas, but the intent is that you can get the full premium experience by subscribing, and then everyone gets paid after that.
Awesome. That sounds cool. And I guess my follow-up question to that then is I play a lot of Roblox with my son, and a lot of times in these games you end up you play and you do some stuff, you can play for free, and then all of a sudden you'll be hit with this, hey, buy Robux to pay to win, basically. How do you guys see that happening within the mirror? Is there going to be that element of allowing people to put in-app purchases in their games, and if there is, do you plan to tackle anything like pay to win in games, or is that something that you will leave to the decision of the game creator themselves?
Good question. So it's very much a balancing play there. We want to make sure that we're both pleasing the creators, they can get paid. But I lean towards like the subscription side. I think that makes a lot of sense. But ultimately, we want the creator to be able to build what they wish. So our focus is, hey, make games for free. It's not going to cost you. The simplest, quickest way to get up to speed with awesome assets is use the rev share model. And that makes everyone happy because it's not as much play to win. When even if it is, then it's really just bifurcating two different camps, free or premium, but not like, hey, premium has to keep on paying more, and they just keep on paying to win. So in that sense, but I think it's great to encourage developers like, hey, make a game, but then anything that's premium should be cosmetic, for example. But then we also, again, we're giving developers full creative freedom. So it might be that their entire game is premium. And because they get all the premium assets if they use those rev share assets. So that's a great model as well. So we'll have to see how a lot of this plays out. So we're focused on subscriptions, but ultimately too, we know that there will be use cases where just the standard, hey, pay for this directly makes
Yeah.
sense. So we'll be offering that as well, but we're encouraging the subscription side because I think that's really the good model as a whole.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, I'm not against the whole. I'm against pay to win in pay to play games where I pay $50 and whatever, or
Oh
in
man.
sort of AAA games for sure. But I think in the Roblox era of games, like it's become a thing that people just kind of accept nowadays, right? So, but I really like the
Yeah.
idea of having this premium subscription model that gets you access to more stuff in the games. I think that works for both people, and I think that's a really cool idea. Awesome. So
Awesome.
I think, I mean, you've showed us in the game. We've talked about it from all different aspects, from the philosophy to how you developed it as well. So yeah, I think the only other thing really left to say is if you guys want to go and check out the Mirror, then you can head over to themirror.space, I believe it is, Jared, and yeah, go and check this out. It's an awesome looking project, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds for this. So thank you very much
Yeah.
for taking the time to speak to me today, Jared. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much. And we're always open to feedback for how we can improve, what we could do better. So love to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you guys for watching. I had a really great time speaking to Jared today about the Mirror, and it was a great opportunity to have a look at a new platform that is definitely something that I'm going to be keeping my eye on in the future. If you enjoy this type of content, please remember to hit that like button to let us know, hit the subscribe button to make sure that you don't miss out on new content, and make sure you click that notification bell to be notified every time I release a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.